I am kind of obsessed with this researcher who basically single-handedly disproved eugenics in the 30s through his research on traditional cultures around the world. He was trying to find out why tooth decay had become so prevalent in Western society. Some people were arguing that it was because of the rise of genetic inferiority, but he had a different hypothesis. He thought that it was actually related to nutrition and lifestyle, and so he traveled around the world to see if he could prove this hypothesis true. So he was studying all these different cultures and tribes around the world that were still eating their traditional diet, and then he also did research on some tribes that had just recently adopted a Western diet. And sure enough, he found that people who were eating their traditional diets had impeccable tooth health, and that as soon as they started adopting a Western diet, which had a lot of refined seed oils and refined flours and refined sugars, their tooth health just went downhill very fast within a couple generations in a way that could not be explained by genetics. He also found that tooth health seemed to be correlated with a lot of other markers of good health. So these traditional cultures, he found, not only did they have really good tooth health, but they also just had really good health in general. They had almost no signs of chronic disease. And so he really started the food as medicine movement through these findings. Another one of his hypotheses was that the healthiest cultures he was going to find were going to be vegetarian cultures who are eating plant-based diets. And he actually proved his own hypothesis wrong with this. He actually found that the more meat and animal fat and dairy that a culture had in their diet, generally the better in health they were. This ranged from tooth health to, again, the prevalence of all kinds of chronic disease. So if a culture was eating a traditional diet, they were always in very good health, but even within that, he found that the cultures that were more meat-based in their diet were actually in even better health. The healthiest culture he found in his travels all over the world were the Maasai, who eat a diet of primarily milk, blood, and beef. He found that only 3.4% of the population had any kind of tooth irregularities, which was by far the lowest he found in any population he studied. This was contrasted by traditional cultures like the Wakamba tribe, who still were in very good health, but had a much more vegetable and grain-based diet, and they had more like 18.4% of their population showing tooth irregularities. Still much, much lower than the Western world, but higher within that spectrum. So I encourage you all to get out there and read and study some of the findings that Weston A. Price made. It's absolutely fascinating. It's just amazing how he both overturned a lot of dietary dogma that existed and still exists, and also single-handedly showed eugenics to be a faulty scientific theory. So really cool stuff. I encourage you to look at his work.